All right. We're live here. Smokey Garrett's with us today, and so grateful that he gave us his time. And gentleman's got a beautiful background with a lot of wisdom, a bit of an icon in our organization. So I'm really excited about this conversation. But before we jump into that, I just wanted to remind everybody what we're doing here and what my goal is with the corporate battlefield. Uh, as every conversation we have, we talk about leadership, we talk about wealth building, and we're going to talk about giving. And my my big sell to you guys is there's a battle going on between good and evil, and you can choose to ignore that battle, or you can get on the side of good and you can work it. And I think that those of us that get to experience success at any given level, we have a responsibility to make sure that we bring those that are less fortunate along with us. So I would just encourage you, as we're sharpening our knife here on the leadership and wealth building front, that giving is a core part of who you become and what you do, and then teach other people how to do that too. So, so thanks, Smokey, for doing that.
Thank
I
you.
think, yeah, and y'all know how I like to do this. I like to let the guests share their background, and Smokey knows what we're going to talk about today in general. So, Smokey, will you just share a little bit about your history, who you are, what you've been through professionally, and kind of where you're at today?
Sure. Well, first of all, Schuyler, thank you for having me. I love what you're doing. I have known you from afar through mutual friends, through Ken and through our organization for years, and have gotten to see your results and just who you are as a human being, as far as some business partnerships that we have. So I'm thank you for being on. Thank you for asking me, and thank you for being who you are. So thank you for that.
My
And
pleasure.
to start back, I don't want to bore everybody, but to start back where I story, I'm gonna move a little bit farther back. I kind of grew up in a very cowboy family. My name is Smokey. I'm actually named after a gentleman my dad knew when he was 9 years old, and it was a guy who was on a ranch in Wyoming. And so my grandfather was a horse trainer, moved from ranch to ranch, and that's how I actually ended up my name. My dad was a only child, and he'd met this one gentleman that he kind of stuck with him the rest of his life, because he was somebody that kind of showed my dad kindness at a moment in his life when there weren't any other kids around, and he ended up remembering that, and that ended up sticking with him my dad his entire life, to name his first child Smokey. And so I'm even going back before I was born, but that actually story has stuck with me because of how that kind of impacted, what kind of impact you have on human beings. You don't ever know, because that gentleman left my dad, never thought of him again. My dad carried it through his life, and we kind of carry on with that side of it. But I did grow up in a very cowboy family, and we grew up without a lot of money, but we grew up with a lot of good things. When I grew, I was the first Garrett to actually but to actually graduate college. Went through that. As I was growing up, I definitely learned to work. We didn't have a lot of economics, but we definitely had a lot of work, and understood what family was and what was my values and what was important. And that moved into me going off to college, and I was actually going to be a horse trainer and go through all of that, and had some problems and hurt my back and had some injuries, and kind of changed the trajectory of my life quite a bit at that time, because I was kind of set out of school and had those moments where I'm like, all right, this is what I'm going to do with my life. And I kind of looked around, and no one had a life there like I wanted to have. No one had a life that I really saw myself in, as far as the people that I was looking at and the mentors that I had in my life at the time. But I changed my major, went back to school, got a business degree and marketing degree, and got out of college, and was looking at kind of what was next. And for me, that was real estate. That was kind of I'd had with my degree, I had all the credits needed to go get my real estate license. So I'm like, well, I started reading all the books back then, all the wealth series, and what creates wealth and where things were done, how to go be successful. And I didn't know a lot, but I was always willing to go do and just go try. And so real estate was that. So I kind of started into real estate as a short-term kind of process. I wasn't planning on doing it long. No one usually gets into real estate as I'm going to do this for a career. Everybody gets in real estate for just a accident or a stop by. I think we were talking earlier, everybody's got a story. Everybody also has a story about actually how they got into real estate. And it's usually never an intention. But I got into real estate. First 6 months, I actually hated the industry, hated what was going on. Working a lot, did not sell anything. My 6th month, I finally got the hang of it. I closed 10 homes my 6th month, and I kind of looked up and I'm like, all right, I can kind of see a path for me. And I looked up, I could see kind of endless opportunities in terms of where I could go. And I'd given myself 1 year in real estate, and that year kind of came and went, and I ended up never going back to go do anything else. And so I said, all right, this is the path. And through that, I've had a lot of incredible mentors and people that have poured into me throughout my life. And that's kind of been a story of my life as we've went through. I've always sought mentors and people that could do things for me, and people that I could help, and I could add value to their life, but I could also add value to myself and actually learning. And so went on the path. I started a team, grew a business. About my 4th year in real estate, I was number 15 or 17, and I was with Prudential in the entire country with Prudential. And I actually hated the business again. I hated what I was doing. I hated how we were doing it. I'm like, if this is this life, this isn't for me. And that's actually how I stumbled upon Keller Williams. I had heard some people talking. I was invited to listen to some education in a very different way. It was actually Quantum Leap. That's a very Keller Williams thing, but it was actually Quantum Leap, and talking about having a big life and a life worth living, and actually how to go do this. It talked about giving. It talks about many of the same things that you have spoke of throughout this time. And I'm like, all right, this is kind of the life that I wanted. And there were some mentors and people in here locally and nationally that I really respected. And so that's actually how I moved over to Keller Williams and relaunched my business. From there, actually, after I had my first child, I started thinking, all right, I need to do something differently, because I met my wife in real estate. First year, we ran a team together, some of the coolest times of our life, getting to work with my wife and getting to work with the things we did. And then from there, we moved over to we had our first child, and she kind of stepped out and stayed at home. And we, from there, 2 years later, I ended up moving out of my real estate team. I wanted something a little bit bigger, and so leadership and this path was what I kind of went on. In 2007, moved out of the team and moved into leadership and the offices, and had some success in those offices, and had some success in what I did, and that kind of led us to my journey through Keller Williams, which is pretty much held every position in some way, shape, and form. I was successful as team leader, but then that led to, I own 14 different offices. Inside Keller Williams, I own 3 regions. We have probably 30 businesses that I run in some way, shape, or form off of that. And it's kind of grown into what we've had throughout the journey.
Yeah. And so just to make it clear, how many people are under those approximately 30 businesses that, you're touching their life in some way?
In our Go organization that we have from an agent standpoint, we have about 4,000 agents, have about 150 employees that work for us in some capacity, way, shape, or form. In the other regions and other businesses, it depends upon. So those are the direct organizations of one of our Go organizations that we have, and that's our largest, and have our partnerships with that. But outside of that, I mean, in terms of reach and what you can touch, I'm in business with people and my partners. We have capacity over probably 20 to 30,000 agents that we get to touch, and hundreds and thousands of different leadership people that we get to touch with inside of those organizations, from a coaching relationship, from a marketing relationship, from all kinds of different relationships.
Yeah. I just wanted to make sure it was clear from a scope standpoint, when you're talking how much experience you have and how important it is. All right. So I like to define things just to make sure we're all on the same page. How do you define leadership for yourself?
That's a great question, and there's just simple answers to it, and then there's also just journey. I think leadership is something that you have, you're born to do, and it's something that you can learn the skill set of, but it's something that you're willing to go stand in a position. I've always said, if you're going somewhere and you're going somewhere and you're going top of a mountain and you're the only one when you get there that's there, you're just really alone at the top of the mountain. Leadership is, and I had to learn this. I had to learn this as I go. Leadership is now going back and how you're bringing everyone along with you. And, what is going to cause people to follow, what is going to cause people to work with you. There's a behavior aspect to that is going to be naturally attractive to people from leadership, but you can be a leadership with any behavioral style. You can choose that path anyway. I think for me, with leadership, I chose the business I chose, and my journey and path I chose was a people path. And so I have lots of assets and things as we have grown, but what I have chose, the career and path I've chose has been building my life and my legacy through people and through large amounts of people. Everybody has assets of buildings and all of that, and those are incredible. The path I chose had to be leadership, and I get to lead real estate agents every day, which is an incredible honor because you're leading a bunch of people who don't have to be there. And so the actual true leadership of that is, comes back from vision. I think vision is incredibly important in terms of where we're going. That vision is a constant changing vision. That vision is a constant moving vision as you go. And it's about teaching. I learned this from Keller Williams, about teaching people how to think, how we're helping people to think to get where they want to go. Because, in my business and what I do, it's not about sending people to do what I want to do. I think it's much easier when I figure out and get in a relationship with somebody where someone wants to go, and then I help them get there. And I help them, and we come along the path and how they win through our organization to reach their goals. And when I understood that in my career, my life got a lot simpler. Then no longer had to be about me in the journey. Now it becomes about, all I have to do is get up every day, focus on everybody else.
Yeah. That's actually how I personally define purpose. I think if your purpose is about you, then it's a very weak purpose. I think your purpose, I think you got to wake up in the morning and think about who, and that will get you up and moving quickly.
Absolutely.
On the vision piece, are you an instinctual, like, hey, things are moving quick, I need to touch my vision again, just through instincts? Or do you have a natural rhythm where you sit down and you're like, all right, I need to evaluate my vision and just make sure we're still, solid here?
I think vision is something that is constantly changing. And I think in terms of, part of a leader's job is to have a big vision, and that vision needs to be far enough out. That vision needs to be big enough to include lots of people in your life. And so you just said it earlier, and you're 100% right. When it's just about you, you create a very small vision and a very small world that's just created to get what you want out of life. And that becomes limiting because no one else has room to fit in your life. And so when you're looking at creating something bigger, you do have an obligation to create a great big vision. The bigger your vision is, and the more committed you are to the vision, the more people are going to be able to be in business with you, and not just be able to, actually be attracted to be in business with you, because your vision is going to be bigger than what they see for their life. If someone, a poor example, but if my goal is to make $500,000 a year, and I'm not going to go to work for somebody who's making $200,000 a year. I need to be working with people that have, millions of dollars that I can go fit in their world and continue to raise that financial thermostat as life goes on. And so, I think leadership needs to always be looking, a few years down the road. But leadership is taking that big vision and then that capacity to break it down to little small chunks, and how it can now go be simplified, and how people can all take action to go reach their goals in their life. And so our vision's always changing, especially right now in this world. The world, we're so uncertain in the industry and the world where things are going. Vision in a way is always changing, but actually our vision doesn't change for what we do for people in their lives. The how to the vision part is changing on a almost daily basis these days.
Yeah. And so you had mentioned part of leadership is teaching people how to think so they can get what they want.
Mm-hmm.
That through your experience, how do you teach those people how to think? Like what's been effective? Because I know it's been a journey in that regard too. But when you start out and you sit down with someone, how are you going to present that way of thinking to them?
Right. What I enjoy doing a lot is teaching and working with our people, and I don't necessarily love standing on a great big stage and just speaking to lots of people. I'm fine at it, but it's not what fills me. Being able to impact people's lives and teach in that way through a coaching or a consulting relationship has always been my way in terms of how I actually conveyed messages and teaching people how to think. And there's a repetition piece to that, and there's also a knowing where someone wants to go. Familiar with, and there's also, from a real estate agent standpoint, when you're leading thousands of people, there's a different approach than if you're leading a few of your most important people. And we go through quite extensive getting to know someone process before we actually ever enter into business with them, from behavioral profiles from multiple behavioral profiles to getting their life story, to going back and really understanding what motivates them. And I look at it as my obligation when I'm getting in business with somebody. I've always said this, and it hopefully it continues to work out. But it's when I'm getting in business with somebody, I'm approaching it with a way of how we're going to be in business together the rest of our lives, and how can I get this person to where they want to go as we move through the journey in the world. And so it begins with that, and just finding out who they are. Nothing about me. It's my job then to go figure out, are we going to be a match, and can I go accomplish what they want to accomplish? Not 100% sure if we're still on.
Yeah, I think we are. I think my camera timed out on me.
Okay.
Yeah, a second here.
There you are. You're looking good.
Oh,
Yeah, thanks.
let's do that.
Well, we'll just run on this. This is my computer camera, but it's fine. All right. Yeah, I love that. And you said I don't think you said it directly, but it seems like people have a vision for themselves. The folks that are under you, they have a vision for themselves, but it sounds like you also have a vision for them too. Because if you're really going to be with them for the rest of their career, or if that's how you're approaching it, you have that. I mean, is that true? Do you have a vision for somebody that maybe is more or less something different than what they might have for themselves?
I think it's a process for all of us in terms of helping to develop humans as we do. I do life with a lot of our important people. I mean, we don't just do business; we do life together a lot of times, and so it is that types of relationships with your inner circle, because the bigger the world gets, the actual smaller that circle is going to become of the people you let in there and who you're working with and how that goes. And so yes, is the answer to that question. Do I have a bigger vision for their life than what they have? I need to make sure they're accomplishing everything they want to out of their life. And I never stop. What gets me up every morning, and you said this as well earlier, is I need to wake up every morning to make sure I'm building something bigger, so the people that came behind me and the people that put their faith into me are going to be able to get every opportunity they have out of life. And then when they reach the point of, this is what I'm good here, then fantastic. Then that brings other people into the world to go accomplish things. But it's my job to continue building big opportunities, and therefore people can choose to have whatever size life they want to have. And life, we'll maybe get into this later, but life isn't just about economics. Life's about a lot of different things besides just how much money you're making or really what you're accomplishing.
Yeah, amen. How many direct reports do you have? Because and where I'm going with this is, I'm assuming a good part of your day is spent on just thinking, right? Leaders got to think. That's where you recast the vision. That's where you think about the plan, all that stuff. So there can't be an unlimited amount of people that report to you. So I just want to hear, like, what's your ratio? It's you to how many, and then how much of your time do you just spend thinking?
last 6 months to a year, there's been lots of thinking, but there's also been lots of active doing in terms of back into the businesses as things have changed and as all of that. I'd had a goal, and I've accomplished it in many times, and then we grow into other things. But it was to be able to run our organization and businesses through having three calls a day. So if I can run every business and all of those through 3 calls a day, that was what the goal we set. And so when you're saying reports, my goal would be 3 reports. How many direct reports do we have right now? I probably have 5 direct reports that are in some way, shape, or form working with me. As we start a new business or go into some new venture, there's always a 3 to 6 month time frame to get the venture off that I'm going to be willing to be involved with and stick with as we're developing people and developing into what we see the business as if I'm the one with the vision or I'm the one helping to set it up, I'm going to be involved for a little while. So those reports change, but 3 to 5 direct reports that I work with on a daily basis is about all we have.
No, that's good. That's what the military says, 3 to 5 in a team. So
you know what? That is correct. That is the span of control. I'd forgotten about that. Yes, that's the span of control.
Yes, sir.
5 people at 5 or 6, 3 or 5, whatever it was.
Yeah. It's built around the infantry team. All right. I want to shift to wealth building. I want to ask one more question here. If I'm a young leader, okay, I'm either in my first position or I'm about to take my first leadership position, and let's just assume that I don't have a great leader ahead of me that I can just directly look up to. Where would you encourage that person to go to really tool on their own leadership and take their motivation and put it to work?
I think the wonderful thing about our world right now is we have more access to more people than what we have ever had. And so, as I was growing up in the industry and growing up in this, I think I said, I always grew by mentors. I've never in my life worked for a paycheck, for a salary in any way, shape, or form. In fact, I have, I started in the real estate business. My take on the commission was a 30% take. That was what I made. 30% was what I went to work for. And it didn't matter because there was a mentor there. And one of my first mentors in business, his name was Alan Toppy. And there was a mentor there that I wanted to be like and had a business I wanted to be like. And so it wasn't that. In every stage in my life, I've had new mentors that I've went to, and I made choices and decisions on the who, not necessarily the what, because it was people that I wanted to learn from and how that went. I think my advice with that question in terms of how to do it, maybe if it's not the best leader or not the best mentor there, and I tell kids this because I work, we have interns and a lot of my family and all of my kids' classes and everything. That's where I really enjoy giving back in terms of just the time and energy to the future generations of what happens. And the important part of this is you've got to find out what value is to someone else and how I go add value in somebody's life. If I'm making nothing and they're making $1 billion, how am I going to add value? And so I've got to figure out how to add value to that person to get to hang out with that person. Whether, I've done all the things, once a month I'll go to lunch with somebody, but it's not just about me. It's how I'm helping them and how I'm bringing value to others. And everybody's willing to help. I've found very few people who have ever said no to me if I approach it in the right way throughout my entire life. I mean, I've had lots of lunches and breakfast and went and spent time. I went to other people. I went across the country to spend a couple weeks with them just working for free or getting in front of people who have lives that you want to have businesses, and I can teach you the next step in that. And so for me, it's always been about a learning journey. And by the way, I have been a constant failure in everything that I have done, and I've been okay taking those next steps and continuing to grow as we have. But the answer to that question is find people out there. There are lots of people in the world that can help you with both the next step and the bigger step, and they're always willing to help. You started off the conversation today with that about your philosophies and giving back and helping and what your obligations are. I think a lot of successful people many times feel lonely, and many times because it is lonely, especially depending on how you're doing it. And so getting to talk to somebody, getting to help somebody, I've always found people willing to do that, share their successes, stories, and become those mentors in your life, or at least the next step for you in your journey.
Yep. Yep. Yeah. Well, and I think part of that too. So you got to take that action. To your point, Smokey.
Mm-hmm.
I think I'm a little closer to like where I started than you are in your career. But where
Hey, you just called me old, but it's okay. I'll be old.
no, I mean,
It's
dude,
all good. It's all good,
I had a
Schuyler.
bad I had a bad
I'm good.
physical for the first time in my life yesterday. I'm humbled physically now. No,
Well,
where I was going.
I went to the golf course this weekend with some friends, and the lady asked me if we were seniors, and that actually literally hurt my
Oh
heart
my
in so
goodness.
many different ways. They were giving senior discounts. Now, a lot of the things with that, but yeah, I'm a little
Yeah.
sensitive right now
Okay. All right.
with that
Well,
question.
I love you. I think you look great. All right, well, where I was going with it before I started hurting everybody's feelings was you gotta you also have to work on your own brand perception too. If I came to you, Smokey, and you knew me as a guy that got things done,
Mm-hmm.
you're going to be much more open to taking that meeting with me because you've already heard that I will do things. I will work hard. I will produce results.
Mm-hmm.
You know, wealth aside or leadership experience aside, I'm going to put the hustle in. So I
Right.
think that having that reputation, having that perception, even before you have all the mentors, it's important. You don't want to go knock on the door and then there be a poor reputation of you out there that could be the reason why you don't get the time. So
150%, 150%. I agree with that completely, and I think that and there's lots of ways to do that right now that are different. You talked about your brand, you talked about what you're putting out there. All of those things are important. Now you still have to deliver when you
yeah,
get that opportunity, and it's not just about a brand, but yes, who you are and knowing who you are before you show up makes it so much easier, and opens up a lot of doors, and spending time on that. Nobody Googles anybody anymore. They're going to go look you up on Instagram. They're going to go look up what that. If you don't have that, that's going to leave you out, and
yeah,
that's going to leave you catching up to a conversation, or even tougher with that. So it's become incredibly important in our world right now of just how you're actually seeing what you're putting out there. And yes, Schuyler, like I said, you were known as you're a guy's going to get something done. You can get any conversation you want to have out there because of who you are and what you've done. So I agree with that.
thanks. All right, let's shift gears to wealth building.
Mhm.
What is your personal definition of wealth?
I think that's my definition has somewhat changed over the years as you go. But I mean, this is a behavioral trait as well, but it's also, for me, it's freedom. I think a lot of us are freedom, and it's how you define freedom is what has changed kind of over the years. But it's always been about freedom. I mean, for me, when I was I've I was growing up, I grew up in a way that, like I said, we were taught to work, and we were taught with a work ethic, and you work on ranches and things like that. There's something to do 7 days a week. There's no day off. I mean, everything
Yeah,
needs to eat every day and do all of that. And but for me, it became freedom, and what that represented, and that had to do with the financial piece of this. It also has to do with the mindset as you go. But for me, 100%, it had to do with being free and being able to have the life I want to have. As that trickles through, that also becomes what kind of freedom indicates for me what kind of dad I can be, how much time I can spend with my family, and what those boundaries I choose to set in my life. I've never asked if I could or could not do something. I've always asked myself how I can do something, how I can be the father that's at every practice, how I can be the coach, how I can be in everything with my kids, and how I can be present and still live as big a life as I want to live, still
yeah,
financially do this, still financially have the things we need, and have the freedom and flexibility to be present at the times, throughout my kid's life. And so the world kind of becomes, once you become convinced of that,
yeah,
and passionate about that statement, and you start asking yourself the questions on how you go do something, and how I create this world, and what I need to go do to create this world, things tend to fall in place, and
yeah,
the world tends to come around that, as long as I'm doing the appropriate actions as I'm there.
yeah. Yeah. I Yeah, I think there's a large part of the population, if they were to just boil it down to a word, it'd probably be freedom. It wouldn't be a dollar amount. I think they think of a dollar amount, but the feeling thereafter is freedom. Um,
Right.
I mean, you had so you shared with us you had a humble start to your
Hmm.
life. So did I. Um, I'll tell you, one of my biggest struggles is when's enough enough. I'm part achiever, where I love to achieve, but I'm also, yeah, I think I have this scarcity mindset of like, well, I'm not going to live like I grew up. Um, and it doesn't, and this point in my life, logically, I can sit there and look at my bank account and know that I'm fine for,
Right.
for as far as I can see.
Hmm.
But I don't ever feel fine.
Right.
Have you ever dealt with that? And if so, like where, where did that loosen up?
I will try to give. Yes, we can spend an hour just talking on that
Yeah.
one subject right there as
Yeah.
you go
Yeah.
as you go through the process of all of that. I think I think there's a couple of pieces. I'm still in the scarcity mindset, and there's no reason to be. But that's what that's what I was kind of taught and grew up with, and so there is always that inside of me that I have to almost fight as you get
Yeah.
as you go through life and get comfortable. But I think when you really know you made it. I mean, my first goal with doing something was where when I went into leadership, I had to replace some of my income of what I was doing with the real estate business and all of that stuff and investments. And so it was to go make $1 million. And so I wanted to make $1 million passively in terms of doing that. And so
Yeah.
I had my plan. It was going to be this many offices, 5 offices, 25%, making this much money. This was how I was going to do it. Well, I still got there. In 3-4 years, I was then making $1 million passively of how I was doing. It wasn't exactly that way. I had some good success in some of the places that we were. And so you hit that number and you think that's it. And you're like, wow, I just took a whole bunch of taxes out and all this stuff, and I still feel broke. And then you go start adding other parts and other businesses, and you
Yeah.
can get in the trap of chasing, enough. Too much is never enough, and you keep going with that. But the
Yeah.
switch in my head and the switch of leadership journey that happened in my head, which is the answer to your question, is at some point it is enough, but you don't ever stop. I don't ever
Yeah.
stop. I enjoy what
Yeah.
I'm doing. You stop how you do it, and you stop. You don't. I've tried to set back. I've tried to not do what I'm doing. I've tried to look at doing things in very different ways, and maybe I'll
Yeah.
enjoy hanging at the beach, or maybe I'll enjoy this, and that's not what
Yeah.
fills me. But what
Yeah.
does get me up every day is I do owe it to all the other people that have been on this journey with me to get up and keep going. So when you get up in
Yeah.
the morning and I don't think about myself in any way, shape, or form because I'm good, now you think
Yeah.
about my job is to get up and go build everybody else.
Yeah.
It's a very different way of getting up and looking. It's actually a very humbling way of getting up and looking at the
Yeah.
world it is. And so I remember very clearly that transition because at some point you do get comfortable in where you are. And all right, I'm good. Now
Yeah.
you start talking about things, and I know we're running short, but now we start talking about things of, for me and my kids of, all right, now how do I start, what's generational wealth look like? How are we creating something not just for me, but for the generations to come? And how can we impact lives as we go? What do we stand for as a family? I think,
Yeah.
for me, I've always stood for family. That's what we talk with my kids since they were little about what we stand for and what the Garretts are and what we do and our belief system and how we go about it.
Yeah.
And that's been part of it. Then also my family is the people that I get to work with and go on this journey with every day. Those are my
Yeah.
family as well, and how we go create that. But that's the switch in your head when it's no longer about me. And now you're getting up to go how many other people's lives you can go impact and what you owe it to and how you're able to accomplish that.
Yeah. No, I like that. Almost just relabeling it, instead of being about you, being about like use that energy to go after others.
Right.
Uh,
Well, you also you wake up with a different purpose.
yeah.
It's a mind shift in terms of that. You're not going for yourself anymore. Now I'm going to
Yeah.
go try to help them and help their life and help that. And
Yeah.
it's a very different reason to go get up, and it's a very different
Yeah.
freedom to go get up and go do that and
Yeah.
create different lives when you don't have to worry about worry about the economics of your life, and you're going to be fine the rest of your life unless you really mess something up. Then now your focus turns somewhere else because there's a new adventure to go do.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. As you look back at how you built your wealth and how you might coach somebody to go build their own, or maybe the way that you're speaking to your kids,
Mm-hmm.
It's pretty clear from what you've shared with us so far that you've been pretty niche in how you built your wealth. For the businesses at least you've named, they've all
Right.
been somewhat in real estate.
Right.
Would you coach someone to be more diversified, kind of like how maybe the financial advisors might advise you, or would you encourage them like, hey, become an expert at what you do, focus there, build around what you know? I mean, what would be your guidance in that regard?
Mm-hmm. I think, and I give this advice a lot, but what you've got to go figure out if you want to be successful in this world is how you become the best at whatever it is you're doing. If you're the best in the world, and I challenge people, it could be something little bitty, but how are you the best in the world at what you do? How are you the best in the world? When I moved into being a team leader and leadership, I wanted to be the best team leader that had ever existed in this company. How am I going to go do that? And what are you the best in the world at? And there's a lot of focus on what's next and the next steps. I think we get too, I hate the word serial entrepreneur, just so you know, we use that. Yeah. I say it about myself. I hate that term because when I hear serial entrepreneur, all I really hear is that means you don't finish anything. And so I'm going to have trouble investing with a serial entrepreneur because unless you have a big track record of finishing a lot of stuff, serial entrepreneur means you move from place to place to place. And all you do is switch income, but you never really get ahead. You're never building something. You are just taking one revenue bucket and replacing it with a different revenue bucket, replacing it with a different revenue bucket. I'm in the real estate business. I'm in the title business. I'm in the building business. I'm in all of these things. Trick is, as you go, how you're the best at the moment at what you do and how you go build that, how you keep a piece of that and then move to the next. You don't have to make as much. You just make a little, you make less and give bigger opportunities and you go build something else. And so, yes, in the real estate industry, and every time I've tried to diversify myself, so to speak. Now my portfolio is well diversified. You have people and you have your financial people you put in your life, and how important those, how good those financial people are in many ways is going to dictate how successful your portfolio is going to be and what's happening. But every time I've tried to diversify into something that I'm unfamiliar with, it hasn't worked out well for me. When I've done stuff that I know what I'm doing and I'm comfortable in, and I'm continually learning and continually trying to grow, when I'm good at when I focus on that, my world continues to get bigger. When I start really going into a lot of other things that I don't know, that's where it gets tougher. Now, what I do know how to do is build businesses. Whether that's a real estate business, whether it's a title business, whether it's a coaching business, I know how to build businesses. And so that is what my knowledge is. And I'm good at bringing teams together. I'm good at putting organizations together. And so my skill set, follows along that lines. It's not limited to real estate or what we have. It is I can go build businesses and get in business with people and build big things. And so that's my advice. Be careful about jumping from place to place. If you're in doing something that's not part of your heart and that doesn't fill you to go do, then that's where you should move. But spend enough time mastering what you're choosing to do before you go take on the next shiny thing. And I've had to fight myself on that a lot.
Yeah. I think I can. It's funny. My wife.
We should all be able to relate on here because that's been my. Whoa, this is awesome over here. Oh wait. Oh, I have to do this. There's a lot of money and that's awesome. But you're just always you end up frustrated, burnt out, and you haven't moved anywhere because your economic needle is not moved anywhere.
Yeah, you're chasing freedom, but you're not getting deep enough in anything to get there. Yeah,
150%. There's a lot of repetition and boredom through success.
My what's interesting, I mean, just hearing you talk about the business part of it and how you invest in businesses and how that plays to your core competency. I'll just compliment that because I know you're great at this, but in my marriage, I am the driven task person.
Hmm.
I love people. I love people, but I wake up in the morning and I'm motivated by instinct about what I'm going to get done, and then my logic says I need to do it with people. Like I'm that. But my wife wakes up and immediately is like, well, who are we going to see? Like she is so outgoing.
Hmm.
It's hilarious actually. But
Right.
before we start anything, she always asks me, well, who are you going to do it with?
Hmm.
And it's been very she's taught me a lot just with that
Hmm.
question. I went from someone that I really only trusted my own work ethic to do anything with, to
Hmm.
now it actually fills a void for me before we start something or before we invest in something, to just know, like, who are we going to do it with? Like that is almost a more important question to me, even though it's not natural, because I've learned that that matters so much with your return. In the end, your return in the end is tied to the person.
Right. Well, I don't know if you've noticed this, Schuyler, but every pro forma that I've ever been given makes money.
Yeah, yeah, that's right.
Although 80-90% of
That's so
businesses are
true.
going to fail, but every pro
Uh,
forma I've ever put on my desk makes money. And if you get a pro forma that does not make money, you should not invest in that. But
yeah,
but every pro
yeah,
forma makes money. So what's to
yeah,
back that up? That's the
yeah,
ability to go execute, and who is the who that is
yeah,
going to go execute.
yeah,
And
yeah,
that's the fun part of that, is because, like I said, there's like pro forma, like, yeah, that,
yeah,
it's not
yeah,
making money. You just move a decimal point and boom, you're making money. But it's the who that's going to go do this and going to stick with something,
yeah,
and what we look for, and that, the leadership team and results of that is it matters more to me than whatever their strategy is.
yeah,
Because uh, a great plan executed by a non-talented person is probably going to fail. An average plan executed by a talented person is going to win every time. And
yeah,
that goes back to the who and what you're looking for.
yeah, yep, yep, yep. Um, One more question on wealth, and this is just because the folks that I've met with that are a little bit behind where I'm at in their wealth building journey.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I think the world is doing a really good job of telling people that they need to be wealthy today. Like,
Yep.
what's taking you so long?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I guess I haven't been asked if I'm a senior yet, but I guess I'm old enough now to know that, like, it doesn't come in a day. Like you have a little bit of up and downs, and
Mm-hmm.
some years you make a lot of money, and some
Mm-hmm.
years you break even. Like
Mm-hmm.
it is what it is.
That's business.
But what
Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I always try to check people and, like, well, who gave you your timeline? Like,
Mm-hmm.
why are you frustrated? Is there someone with a gun to your head saying, like, you have to have this money by this date? To your point, focus on being a great father while you build some wealth. The wealth is going to come. But
Mm-hmm.
what is kind of your thoughts on that? Because I know you run into it with agents all the time. I mean, I'm an
Mm-hmm.
agent. I know how agents think.
Sure.
So how do you help them set realistic expectations on the speed of wealth building?
Well, and it's funny because we're in a society of, yes, it is definitely what you said, of how to get rich quick. The expectations are quick. People go into our industry. From the real estate inside. Well, hey, I've watched all these shows on HGTV about real estate agents. I can go make millions. It's simple, and all those things. And so
Yeah,
there are managing expectations, because what shows up when you get here is work, and there's
yeah,
nothing getting around the work on any side of this. But then you have, okay, well, I got rich in Bitcoin. I did this. I mean, there's all the other cryptos. There's 1,000 different ways. I'm gonna go start a little prop tech company. I'm gonna go do this. I mean, there's 1,000 different ways. You get on TikTok. My son, he's always telling me, hey, this idea, look at this. They do this. I'm like, that's not real. Maybe that happens for you. Maybe you get lucky and you bought into to Bitcoin at the right time. I'll tell a 30-second story. There was a gentleman that I played golf with last year, at down in Mexico. We stayed at the Mayacoba, and we played golf. This really nice golf course in the middle of the week. And so the gentleman that we played with, really strange guy, didn't talk a lot, young guy. He was 30 something like this, and 33 I think he was. And so he wouldn't really tell much about his story, but long story short, his grandfather had told him to buy 10,000 shares of our spend $10,000 and buy Bitcoin when it first came out. And so we did the math on all of that with him. He told me what I bought it for. What he just sold out for, he made about $50 million from that $10,000 investment. And so, but he's sitting there in his life, going to play, super expensive golf course in the middle of the week by himself, moved down there by himself, and really has no strategy or plan. He cannot go reproduce those results, and he can't go reproduce what he's done. Someone can always get lucky and go live that life, and that's a possibility. But if you want some guarantees on what's going to happen, you can definitely guarantee what you're going to go do, your activities. And historically, success comes from the mundane, comes from consistency, and comes from constant activity over and over, and then go and build something. And those are the ones you can guarantee. Those are the ones that will happen. It depends upon a timeline and how you're going to go do it. And once you've done it, because when you fail at something, you've gotten all the experience that goes along with that, then to go do it better and quicker the next time. And so I've always been willing to bet on myself and invest in myself and all of those skills. And, whether you're even being TikTok famous, you're an influencer. My kids, I'm an influencer. I'm like, you got like 3 friends, so no, you're not. But anyway, so that's what they're doing. But that takes work to go do that. It's the same work to go be these influencers and to go do all that. The 24/7 they put into it. It's the same formula, no matter what the activity is.
Yeah. I mean, what you're saying. I mean, what you're saying is leading yourself, right? I mean, that's lead yourself. That's, So, I might ask you, how do you? Because I usually ask people their morning routine. I mean, how do you lead yourself in the morning so that you show up every day as the leader that you want to be? That is going to produce results.
Yeah, well, that's that, and that's great, and that changes throughout my life depending on what I want to be. I'd get up every day and go do the grind, and then I had got to a spot where I could choose the days, and I hated Monday, so I didn't want to go to work. I'm not going to work on Monday. I'm just not going to do it. I'm not going to participate in that. So you get to create the days. But I mean, as far as it's always been, when my kids were growing up, I made sure my day was started out with, I'm not a morning workout guy. I've become a morning workout guy. I used to be in the evening, but I get up at 6 and my daughter and I would spend time together. So we always had that family time, and that's run throughout. And so I always took my kids to school and did all of that. And, then they start driving and don't want to hang out with you anymore. But then, so you replace that. So you replace the morning routine with getting up. I don't want to hear that. Ken Wimberly, I think, is in the group, and, that guy's got a workout plan. He gets up and grinds. He's up at 3:30 every morning, and I'm not that guy. I'm going to wake up at 6, and I'm going to have some meditation time for me, some thinking time, some getting ready. I'm going to go work out. I'm going to go begin my day about 9:30, and as I work out, I'm going to spend time with my wife and have some time there. Then I'm going to go execute the day. And so your energy is what's the most important part as a leader, is being able to control your energy and not letting your energy run out. And so being able to set those boundaries on that becomes super important.
Yep. Love that. Okay. Giving. You've achieved a lot of success. You've already shared some about, teaching some of the young folks. You really enjoy doing that. What does giving mean to you and your family? Because I know it's giving is a family effort. So what does it mean to you and your family, and how are you guys doing it these days?
I think everything is about giving and who you are. And so a lot of my motivations behind that is who I want to be as a father and how I want to teach I think you can, there's all these things that you can go talk to your kids about this and say this and do all this and all these courses that are incredible. But really, what you're doing is what your kids are going to turn into. What they're seeing is what your family's going to be, and what you're putting out there is what's going to happen regardless of what you say. And so a lot of that has to do with my children. But as our businesses and offices, it's important. Every one of our businesses has a responsibility to the community in terms of that we serve and how we're giving back into the community. I mean, we have, with Keller Williams, we already have that kind of set up in that with the community giving and what we do. And we make sure we always have, it's a part of who we are as a company. It's part of who we are as the Go organization in terms of our obligation to helping our communities and how we do that. And that comes in the terms of lots of capital that we're able to go do and how we do this, and lots of actual physically showing up and helping people.
Yeah.
So all of our businesses, that is the standard for what we do and how we go do that. With our family, that's something we get to choose. And several years ago, I put all of our assets into trust and created family trust and long-term trust. That's the next step along the journey for me was, how do you affect the next generation? And my decision was, all right, we're going to go through trust and we're going to set up how that works. And it's not just you're a trust fund kid, but what those trusts mean. So then we go in, we have family meetings about the economics, about trust, about teaching your kids about money, about understanding money ourselves, and get to actually understand what a family business can be and how this lasts generationally. And so a big part of that comes with giving and what we choose to give, whether it's our church, what charities we support, who we support, how we help people both personally, individually, which is incredibly rewarding because you're actually the one actually there on site. And there's just the bigger picture of how you're impacting the community and being a part of that. We do a lot of things from a mission work, from all the donations, all of the help we do. We go out and do things as a family. Now, my daughter went off to college last year, so but she's still involved, and it's fun to watch your kids, what they do when they go off, and how she took many of the things that we have done from a giving aspect, from a church aspect, community aspect, and she's repeated that. She went to OU, which was my least favorite school on the planet, but still, I'm happy and she's happy there. So
they're in the SEC now, so at least we have that.
I get to see all of that. That's the fun part.
Oh shoot!
I don't know if that helps. I mean, I don't know how much.
That's good. That's good. I mean, the point is that you do it. I say this often, and if you won't give $1 out of $10, you're not going to give $1 million out of 10 million. I mean, you need to give where you're at, and it doesn't always have to be money. It could be time, it could be talent, right? But the point is that you got to do it. And I've got some people in my life that when they struggle, my feedback to them is like, hey, the reason why you're struggling on the inside is because it's all about you. Like, go find somebody to help. If you go help somebody, it'll be less about you, and you know what? You'll feel better. You just will. And so that has been
facts.
And
every time I start feeling bad or things are going rough, it usually comes back to that. You'll get into a rut, and it comes back. In my life, I have lived that. It comes back to that very thing. You want to get out of a rut. You want to go out of somewhere, start focusing on somebody else, and so and life begins to open up. That's been my way of doing it, and I've always noticed that in my life as we've gone.
Yeah. Well, what you working on now? I mean, what do you want to tell the group or anybody that sees this in the future?
I think I'm going to go back and say one more thing. One of the best pieces of advice I'd ever heard in because you talked about wealth building and in our wealth building journey. And I did this, my first move over to when I first made the move and came over, and business partners, I made a bunch of bad decisions. I found myself, I'd just gotten married, and I found myself $150,000 in debt. I mean, no money, $150,000 in debt and real estate. And I developed I read something where it said, hey, I forget all the billionaires look at how much they look at their net worth or what that is. And so we started that. My wife and I actually started that habit together. We started looking weekly. I mean, they were all negative numbers. They were bad numbers. It wasn't fun to look at every week, but you began to understand your economics, begin to understand things. And on a weekly basis, we looked at our net worth, and we looked at what we were doing and what decisions we were making. That's moved over to a monthly basis, but literally it goes everywhere I go. I carry it in my book. I carry it around. Monthly, we sit down, and it goes through your net worth, your assets, what you have, what you're doing, and that's a habit that we have never done. Just by focusing on your goals and focusing on that financial side of that, we get in a really bad habit about focusing on cash flow, and cash flow is important, but that doesn't create wealth. Cash flow will never create wealth. It'll create opportunity to go create wealth, but spending time looking at if you'll do that one activity every month and have somebody do it with you, not by yourself. For me, it was my wife, and now it's become our family of sorts as we go through the things that we go through, because it's the same habits, but what you focus on, you expand. And so from the time when I was $150,000 in debt to today, obviously that piece of paper has changed, but you're able to get it on one page of what's important and how that goes. What we're working on is the fun part of the future of real estate. I want to be a part of what the future of this industry is going to hold, and every day I get up, that requires new partnerships, new thinking, new visions, and it provides a lot of energy to me because I'm excited to be a part of it.
Man, that's great. Okay, well, how can we follow you? Are you on Instagram or LinkedIn?
I'm on Instagram. I'm new on Instagram. I'm getting there. I think it's Smokey _ Garrett. Smokey Garrett.
Okay. Yeah. We'll find it. We'll post it in the notes.
Follow me. I think you put in Smokey Garrett _ it shows up somewhere there. There's a lot of Smokey Garretts on there, but there's only one with pictures. So Facebook, the same thing. Love that. However I can help. I mean, I love being a part of groups like this. I love being this communities are some of the most important part. And that's as you go through your journey, you talk about tribes, you talk about however you want to say it, but that group you're doing life with and that group you're growing with, you're going to be we're all a collective sum of the 5 people we spend the most time with in every aspect of our life. And if you're going to choose those, these things are just absolutely amazing and important if you plug in. So I'm always willing to help, because I'm going to ask you for help as we go throughout life. And if I can do anything for anybody, I'm always open. So I appreciate it. And you guys have poured tons into my world and life over the years.
Yeah, you got it. Well, we're grateful for the time. In ending this, you all know that I don't charge you for any of this content. Smokey didn't ask me to pay for it. So he's gifting his time and talents here and experience. But we're going to have a QR code that we'll share. If you want to donate, you know that we give 100% of the revenue to teachers in financial need. And, I get the benefit of being able to hand this money off to people. So I see how much it impacts their lives. And, $1, $5, $100, it's up to you guys. So I'm grateful for that. And, keep tuning in and following us. We really appreciate it. Thanks, Smokey. Really appreciate you.
Awesome. Thank you guys.